let's get serious,
Let's.
all right? What's new in 20... So this is going to be our first mates chat for the year. What are the new things this year? What's changed? Let's educate. Let's all learn. I don't know what's changed, genuinely. I usually do, I don't know. So,
well, not much.
Okay.
That's probably why you don't know, because the game's pretty good.
So you've locked in.
We don't have to do that much. We're in a really fortunate position that we've inherited a really good quality game style. Rule changes years ago have led us to I'm talking on field.
Yeah.
Have led us to be in a really fortunate position that it's about keeping the game as good as it is, or making it better. There's a few little tweaks, rules I'm talking now, to the men's game. We'll bounce the ball after a 666 warning. That's a little tiny change as opposed to throwing it up.
Why is that?
Just to keep consistency. We don't do that anywhere else. So bounce the ball, keep it the same.
Bounce the pill, yeah.
Yeah, make sure it's the same all around the ground. We've got 4 umpires now, obviously, so we'll pay advantage from centre bouncers when we previously didn't. We'd bring them back. We only had 1 set of eyes on that contest. Now we have 2.
Okay.
So we're trying to help the clubs keep the ball moving. They're little changes, though. In terms of anything material, we've chosen not to change anything, and we always look at it. But yeah, I think we'll see much of the same.
Chip in ball. So you played with a chip in the ball last year. What was the chip in the ball? And we didn't go with the chip in the ball, did we? In the W we did.
We go with it in W, so it's ball tracking is in our W competition, not yet in the men's. I could talk all day about this. It's one of my favourite things we've ever worked on.
Where's the chip from? Who made the chip?
So we work with a company called Sportable, who work on a lot of different sporting codes, rugby, golf, etc. There is a little chip in the ball, and it started because we were curious about density and congestion. So at the moment, we don't know where the players are. We don't automatically know where the players are relative to the footy because nothing tracks the footy. So it's all manual. And so we were trying to automate, connected with where they are. They've got GPSs, obviously, on the field at any given time, and help us understand game analysis. What it evolved to, though, and we're using it for in W is score assist, because it recognises being touched. It doesn't know what it's touched by, but it recognises a touch of a hand or a goalpost instantly.
How effectively?
Incredibly effectively. So we're at 99 point something accuracy for the score review or score assist overlay. What we can't perfect is human error. We still need humans to interpret the information and the data and make decisions or triangulate vision to data. Cool. But it is unbelievable technology. It's really good.
I was going to say Tom goes for Gold Coast, so he liked in the W game that game there.
That's why I added in human error. There's nothing I can do about that.
But it's sort of nice to know that it's human error, Like, I like that element of it being in the game still. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's it's the first year we've ever used it, and that game against Collingwood was tough, but, I understand how it happened.
Do you think it'll eventually be in the men's season?
I mean, we always look at making the game better. So if we can officiate the game better, if we can learn more about the game, we have a really good system in the men's, which is the ARC. It's just different. It's tracking different things. So from a score review perspective, we have a different solution. From a game analysis, ball movement, congestion, all the micro data, we can see, like we know in the W that Dakota Davidson's one of the most accurate kicks. She's going at something like 98% when she has shots on goal. And that means the way the ball's spinning. So how straight is the ball moving from any angle? It's really cool.
Dakota Davidson's the straightest kick.
In the W competition. I haven't told her that yet, so I hope she listens.
Wow, wait. Okay, the sub rule. Just these generic things I'll hear driving around listening to Talkback Radio. But the sub rule still in this year, but we're moving away from it eventually? Is that the suggestion?
Not necessarily. There's been a lot of commentary about it. We did an analysis on what's happened to the game since the sub rule came in. So since it's been introduced in the AFL competition, we've had what we'd call a reduction in compromised matches. So games that are blowouts, we've had that reduction by 25%. That's a really big deal, that a quarter of games are less compromised. What that means is that the longer you have the same number of players actively available on your bench and able to participate in the game, the more competitive you are.
Right.
And the earlier you lose players and the bigger differential, this is all obvious, I think, to footy fans, the earlier you lose players, the more likely you are to lose the game. The more you lose, the more likely you are to lose. So having, say, 5 on the bench, which was a suggestion, if you lost 2 players early in the game, your win-loss goes down, and we want to keep the game close and competitive for as long as possible.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, 100%.
Does it make, because then it would be still technically, if you're down 2, it's still technically 4 on the bench versus 2 on the bench, as opposed to 5 on the bench versus 2 on the bench. Is that the thing?
Yeah.
That's right. And we see that. So then you overlay, you think, do the clubs share this? Is this how the clubs see the tactical application of this? And they almost exclusively make subs after half-time, which tells us that no one wants to take the risk before half-time, which tells us if you take the risk, you're taking a risk.
Yeah.
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
So we're pretty comfortable with it from a game analysis perspective, but it doesn't mean that we don't hear the clubs with what's hard.
Yep.
And the communication with the players, that part, we're constantly talking to the clubs about how we can make it better.
Just a question without notice that's come up while we've been talking is, if any rules that have kind of been brought in the last decade, can you think of one that you think there isn't enough, congratulations on how well that's taken, on how well it's affected the game? Is there any one rule that you think that's actually been really, really positive for footy?
So I think rule changes need to come in as a suite of changes if you're trying to address a problem generally. And I think the success of Steve Hocking and the team that put together the series of rule changes, Stand and 666, are so effective and so good.
What was those ones? There was 666 Stand.
They're the 2 main ones.
Yeah.
They're the main ones that changed the way we spread the ground. The 666 rule is very good. I think that a Stand is good in play, and it helps create a different style of ball movement that supports scoring.
Right.
But the 666, to sort of not be able to drop a player back, not play that defensive style game or shut the game down, means you can still come back and there's still hope, and you can be 5 goals down at 3/4 time and still think your team might win. And that's what we want for fans.
A thing we often talk about on this pod is how Gold Coast, I think, are going to win a bunch of flags because their academy is getting so strong. How are the Northern academies going, and what's it looking like up there for Tom?
They're going for Tom. They're going incredibly well. I acknowledge that whilst we haven't yet seen the on-field success for the club, we've seen a state league flag not that long ago, which was great. It was a really good representation, I think, of the development programs and pathways. The academy's unbelievable.
Yeah.
They're producing really good talent, and I know that can be a contentious issue. So for other clubs and too much talent, it's a pretty good problem to have in a market that's grown from having no team to now having a number of boys and girls in the National Academy, a number of the best players that we're seeing across men's and women's drafts coming from Gold Coast. I think there's a couple at Burleigh, Palm Beach. They're producing players all the time. So our job is to make sure that the distribution of that talent's equitable, and there's not what you'd call an unfair advantage. And I know that's where a lot of the commentary sits, but from a talent perspective, we're really pleased to see the growth.
The chat last year was that Queensland had more AFL participation than any other sport in Queensland. Is that real? Is that true?
The numbers are unbelievable. I think what really kick-started it was the hub, having the entire competition in the state. That, by the way, many years of work to lead to that, but really, kick-started this extreme interest in our game. We all lived there for 3 months or 4 months, played a grand final there, etc.
Were you there?
I was, yeah. I was with North Melbourne in the hub the whole time. So
you go to Movie World?
Didn't go to Movie World, no. Wasn't allowed to.
Oh, fair enough.
But I think it started there. We've obviously got the success of the Brisbane Lions, men's and women's. And I think Gold Coast, they live such an active, outdoorsy life that it's not a surprise that they can kick a footy, and the athleticism is shining through.
It's bogan heaven up there. It really is.
They're
it's
your
like
words.
Big shopping
I
centre.
love the Gold Coast.
I do too.
Yeah, nothing wrong with. I think I'm a Red Rooster and Beach. That's all
it's
it is.
pretty good.
So what happens if the academy becomes so strong and all the best players just go straight to Gold Coast. Is that possible? And what? Yeah.
Our job's to look at the competitive balance mechanism, so the bidding system, the discount system. So we changed last year through a competitive balance review. Previously, you got a 20% discount when you bid on those players, and I'm talking about the points system in the draft. Now you get 10, and we've publicly said we'll review that position, whether it stays at 10, whether it doesn't stay at 10. We need to make sure that the distribution of talent is equitable, but it is a good problem to have. And the idea that a couple of decades on, that this team in particular and this region are producing so much talent that they may spill to other teams around the country is exactly what the intention was, I think, all those years ago. So it's on us to make sure those rules are equitable and fair, and we have a even spread of talent. But it's a challenge.
Is Tassie going to have an academy as well?
We're looking at that. We're looking at everything from the pathway. We obviously look after AFL Tasmania and the talent pathway now, and we want the pathway to be producing players. So we're looking at that. We're looking at the state league, and then we're obviously looking at their entry into the elite comps.
I feel like a professional journalist. How do you feel?
I thought this was a comedy podcast.
Yeah, no. I've just really got locked into this zone, and I'm like, am I doing okay?
I mean, we also
you're doing very well.
Thank you. No, you're fantastic at this as well. Like, I feel like I could ask you anything and you're ready. How do you do lots of prep, or is this just by, like, obviously you do a lot of prep, but is it also just by being symbiosis with all of the knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this stuff every day, but we also know people are interested in it. So we need to know. That's our job's to try and make the game as well officiated, as even, as exciting, as fun for the fans. It's not for us. And so I try to make sure that I understand how the whole department works, how the game works, and how things are connected. So, yeah, I could talk all day.
All right, I'll jump back to more questions. I got more. Themed rounds. So how does the AFL come up with themed rounds? And what and how do you go about it?
It's all different ways. So we have things and we celebrate different things. So it depends what competition you're talking about first. So we obviously have our Sir Doug Nicholls round, Indigenous round across both of our competitions. We have Toyota Good for Footy rounds where we celebrate community. Toyota are a massive sponsor, really important sponsor for us. All the way through to, in the W, we have Pride round. We have themed games. Lots of clubs theme and celebrate. Big Freeze, Spuds game. You know, there's so many things, and it depends on what's important to a club. In terms of themed rounds for us, it's a really big decision, and we need to make sure that we're theming around and investing time and effort into something that really matters. And so if you take Sir Doug Nicholls round as an example, it's the most unbelievable celebration of our Indigenous history and culture. To play the girls, the first Dreamtime game for the girls in Darwin. Dreamtime at the G is one of my favourite days of the whole year. So we work through it, and things come up from time to time.
Is a Pride round on the radar at all for the men's?
I mean, it needs to work for the competition. And so it's not on the radar. We talk about, what do we do in the men's that's different to the women's and vice versa. For the women's, it works. It's a really important part of our AFLW players' identity. A high number of players, same-sex attracted players who are out and proud of that. And we just need to make sure if we did a Pride round one day that it worked for the men's competition. And I mean, to be honest, we'd hope that our competition is inclusive all of the time and that we don't need to pick a weekend to celebrate our inclusivity and that it's just normal. But at the moment, we know that it's really important advocacy and, maybe one day.